Hi there. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our latest webinar from New Energy Work. And I'm really happy and really excited because look who we've got here. We've got Dr. Dan Keown, our special guest, and he's going to be with us for the next hour. So if you'd just like to say hi on the chat, tell us where you're from, and then we'll go straight in. Oh, someone from Ecuador. There we go.
Wow.
Dorchester.
Hola.
I have to say that Dan has broken all records. We had, last time I looked, we had 622 signups, which breaks the record. So we're very, very excited. Oh, they're coming really fast now from all over the world. Absolutely cool. So really, really happy to have you here, Dan. Thank you very much for agreeing.
Thank you for inviting me, Clifford. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be on.
Okay, cool.
You might be able to hear a baby crying in the background. So
I should say that you've got a few-day-old baby as well, which makes it doubly impressive that you've actually managed to get an hour out of the way.
Yeah. Thanks to my wife.
Well, it's very good. Say thank you to her from us. I'm going to just share the slides, and so we can go through them. And if you want to adjust your screens at home, you can lift up this bar here, and you can lift it up and down, and you can get the slides a little bit bigger or smaller, whatever you like. So I've got just a few opening slides, and then I've got some of Dan's images. They're from his new book, The Uncharted Body, which is an awesome book, which follows on from his very famous best-selling book, Amazon best-selling book, Spark in the Machine. I'm going to give you a link later on. I've got some polls coming up. I'll give you a link to check out his book. Okay, and this webinar also, in case you didn't know, launches our brand new online course, Shiatsu the Scientific Basis, which I'll talk about just for the last 5 minutes of the webinar. Okay, so here we go. Let's just see what the next slide says. Okay, look, how about this, Dan? Look what I found in my photos. This is, guess whose arm that is? That's my arm.
Is that your arm?
Yeah, do you recognize
it? Oh yeah, of course I recognize that arm.
Yeah. That was when we did that swap. We did a swap in that residential just down the road from where you live. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. And there we are. That's me working on you. They did a HARA diagnosis, and I was working on your back there, if you remember that.
Yeah, that was great. I do remember that. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was very, very interesting for me to find out that your technique, because we did some experimenting, we found out that your technique between our technique of palpating down the channels gave exactly the same information as doing a Shiatsu technique, looking for subos and looking for places along the channel. So I thought it was a really good example of how actually they're slightly different modalities, but it's kind of the same. We're all doing the same thing. So that's kind of like really cool. Okay, cool. What have we got now? Okay, so now I've got your slides, Dan. So I just thought we could go through them. And then if anyone's got any questions as we go along, you can put them in the chat and I'll kind of field them. And then I'm probably going to have some questions myself, but we can work through them, and then we can get an idea of what kind of thing you're up to. I mean, on a personal note, I mean, it's really been a revelation to read both your books. Personally, I found it really great because I remember way back, maybe 10 years ago, I was doing a workshop in Italy with Patrizia Stefanini, who's also doing one of these webinars later on. She's doing the one next month. And she was with Emilio Del Giudice, who's a really amazing physicist. And he had lots of really cool ideas about how the body's connected up. And I remember saying to him, because he had pretty much could figure out how the information traveled, but I asked him a question, and I asked him, I said, Emilio, what I really want to know is why is this channel, I mean, I know how it communicates, but why is this channel here? Why is it here? And why does it connect with the pericardium? You know, and why does the liver channel, why does it, you know, and he just looked at me and said, that's for you to find out. So
you can cheat, Clifford, because I can give you my opinion anyway. I don't know if it's correct, but only the fullness of time will tell.
Yeah, so, exactly. But I think it's certainly the most convincing explanation that I've heard so far. And so, yeah, we can discuss that as we go along. Did you want to flick the slides through yourself, Dan, or do you want me to do it? Or
I'll.
Oh yeah, there you go. You're doing it. You're doing it. Yeah.
the slides. So yeah, that question, which basically is the question of why are these channels, why is a position or channel on the arm connected into the body, gets to the nub of acupuncture, really, doesn't it? Because and when I learnt at acupuncture school, effectively the way I was almost taught was that these were just lines on the surface of the body. In fact, if you look at most pictures of the channels in the body, they're drawn as lines on the surface. They're not drawn in deeper. And let's just flip. If you see, for instance, these channels here, they're all drawn on the underneath the skin in the anatomy, and they start to make more sense when you know your anatomy. That's one of the key things about, anatomy is kind of, surface anatomy especially, is actually more important for acupuncturists than for doctors, much more important. So the channels are simply like the spaces between structures in the body, in much the same way as if you walk around a house, you can only walk around the house through channels. But it's the space that allows you to walk around the house. And nobody would start defining a house in terms of the space generally. They'd say, oh, it's got walls, it's got a roof. They might talk about staircases inside, and maybe even start describing the things inside, the sofas, and there's a table there that you have to walk around. But nobody really talks about the space so much. So they don't say, oh, there's a big, well, sometimes an estate agent will say there's a big space there, but it's a space to put things in, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and it's the same within our body. The body is basically composed of all this potential space. The space isn't really there until you kind of open it up, and this is what surgeons do all the time when they operate. Hence why the first book was called What God Forgot to Tell Surgeons. The very, very first book. Yeah. What did he forget to tell surgeons? Well, the joke is that the surgeons think that when they operate and dissect the body and go through all these lovely channels through the body, then they just presumed that God had put them there to make their life easy. And actually, most surgeons, I don't think, in my experience, have ever really considered why they were there in all seriousness. But the reason they're there, these channels, is to allow the body to organize itself and to allow a flow of chi. And these same channels can be seen very easily just by looking in any anatomy textbook. And then you can see when people draw things, and the body included, they draw things, and in the body they draw the things, the muscles and organs and bones, and then they have to, like, to draw it, they have to create what's called negative space in artistry. So in other words, they have to create the illusion of a division between these two structures. And so that's the real challenge in artistry. Now, that's what, if you look at an anatomical picture of the body, what you will see is, so here, the muscles there, all of the muscles in between those muscles are channels, and these are real channels, and you could even actually put liquid in and expand them out, and that, in the same way that they do with keyhole surgery, they put air into these spaces and expand them out. So that's the physical basis of the channels as real things within the body. Hence why I never use the word meridians, because to go back to our first picture, the word meridian actually comes from, the translation was from these two characters, Jing and Lua. And these characters are kind of like squiggly lines in a way, but what they were translated as meridians because they contain elements of a warp and woof, like the warp and woof of a fabric. And so the chap who translated this was around 150 years ago, and he was a Frenchman called Georges Soulier de Moron. And he didn't, these characters, these words, Jing and Loi, really do not have equals within Western vernacular. So he was like, what do I do? How do I translate this? And a friend said, well, it sounds and he explained how the characters were drawn. And a friend said, "Oh, it sounds like meridians of the Earth." And he said, "Oh, meridians. Okay, great." So, not bad. I'm not going to criticize him because he did amazing work translating all these books. He wasn't a doctor nor acupuncturist. And then, but that word stuck, and it stuck, and it stuck. And it was only actually, even after I'd written the first book and I started to look more closely at the characters, and I started looking at this character, and this first character here that you can see, I don't know if it's the character C.
Yeah, you can see. I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that character, that's actually silk. That's where the word silk comes from.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now there's a chap called Nigel Wiseman who writes books about the Chinese characters and exactly what they mean. And he says that even though that is C, it could be any thread woven into a fabric.
Right.
So in context, this is fascia.
Yes.
And more importantly, this second part of the first character you can see at the top, XC, that is rivers. So these are fascial rivers. Right. And the next character along is actually a collagenous net or collagenous web. That's the lua. So it was always there in the characters. These fascial rivers are the exact same fascial rivers that you can see on the muscles themselves. So if we get close up on this muscle here, and you can do this, you can look at any anatomy textbook, surrounding all of those muscles and surrounding the bones and surrounding the organs is a layer of fascia. Now imagine fascia like cling film, or maybe like it actually is very similar to silk. So silk's a pretty good word to use. And it covers everything and surrounds it. But what that means is that the other side of the fascia to the muscle is basically a clean and is a channel. So that's the big channels in the body. Right. Now, what happens when the body grows is that it starts from a single cell, and it grows and it grows and it grows. But the critical thing it has to do as it grows is stay connected. Right. Yeah. Because imagine even if like, on a macroscopic scale, we went off to colonize Mars, for instance. I mean, I was going to say like America or something like that, but we did that. But you went off to colonize Mars and you lost connection with those people. Effectively, they would almost be no longer part of the human race. These people. Yeah, sure. Yeah. God knows what would happen to them. You wouldn't know. Now, it's the same with the body. All the cells have to stay connected to each other. It's really important. When cells lose the connection, then they should go to sleep. But if they lose the connection and go rogue, malignant, that's cancer. Right. So the cells have to stay connected. And as the single cell grows and multiplies and divides, at first it's just a kind of collection of cells with some order. But then as it gets bigger, it starts creating these fascial pathways between the cells. Think of them like super highways of communication, like fiber optics. Yeah. Yes. So the cells themselves, the individual cells, still kind of stay connected with tiny little threadrals, and that's the lua. But the big picture, the organs, the muscles, they all stay connected through these fascial pathways. Right. And these fascial pathways then naturally end up spreading down through the arm and into the leg as well. And that's how you can then feel. And the reason that this connects, for instance, to the heart, this channel here, is because, in this case, it's simply the ulnar artery. The ulnar artery. So the ulnar artery is basically connected to the heart, obviously. And then all of the channels have, like the body as it's growing, it tries to keep things simple, or maybe our brains try to keep things simple. And it actually has like 6 planes or 6 wrappings. And those wrappings then spread into the arm and the leg, and hence you get 12 channels. Right. Yeah, that's right. I remember reading about that in the book. And I tell you what, it also reminds me of the way you're describing cells reminds me so much of James Oschman thing about the cell not being a bag.
you know, because when I was at school, and I think that's common with a lot of people, you were taught that the cell was like a bag just floating around, not connected to anything. And the cell membrane was just like, it was like a football almost, not connected, like a contained thing. And the reason for that, apparently, I found out, was that the reason for that was because there just wasn't a microscope and there wasn't a technique available for looking at living cells. So all they did was they just squashed them and they killed them. And then they looked at them and go, oh, they've got a ring around them. They must be like a bag. You know what I mean? And it was only when they could actually look at a living cell, they suddenly saw all these collagen fibers and, you know, exactly like you say, all these fiber optic fibers going right in and then connecting deep inside the cell. So even the DNA and everything in this and the mitochondria and in the actual cell are actually not isolated at all. They're actually connected as part of this whole, you know, web work of system. You know, I thought that was amazing. So I looked it up on Wikipedia. I thought, I wonder if, you know, what Wikipedia says, and it says the cell is a bag. and then it's got like literally like about 10 pages of detailing the exact constituents of the stuff that was in the bag when they squashed it. You know, but it had nothing about the structure in it. I just thought, oh my God, no wonder I just got completely the wrong image in my mind of how the body's connected right down to a cellular level, you know, just totally the wrong image.
I mean, it's all running on energy. That's the thing about the cell. It's like we have a very mechanical model of the cell, and this cell being kind of like a machine.
Yeah.
But actually the whole thing is running on energy, and energy is like, this is why the whole thing works so much faster. I mean, so for instance, take an adrenaline molecule. So you know, according to the kind of machine-like mechanical nature of the body, the adrenaline molecule just so happens to find the adrenaline receptor and then triggers it. Well, if you've ever given adrenaline to somebody, that, you know, the result of giving adrenaline IV is incredibly fast,
right?
Like seconds. Yeah. So, you know, this idea that the adrenaline, you know, you put it into the bloodstream and it's just within seconds, it's randomly found, and it's only, you know, a few molecules of adrenaline you put. Well, I say a few molecules. You know, a milligram of adrenaline, huge dose IV. I've given it once actually.
Oh, you might want to. I don't know if everyone knows that actually Dan is actually a medical doctor, and you worked in emergency, didn't you, for quite a long time in A&E?
Yeah, that's right. So you're supposed to give a milligram of adrenaline IM for anaphylaxis, and every doctor's made mistakes. This is one of mine. I gave it IV into the vein.
Right.
This poor guy just went. I went.
Oh dear.
And then he was tough, so he survived, thank God. But I mean, you know, the difference.
You're supposed to put it in the muscle, right? So it's slower release.
Yeah,
right.
You can put it in the vein, but you have to put it in micrograms, not milligrams.
Right.
Anyway, it was within seconds. It works within seconds. And so the idea that this is all mechanical is I think wrong. It's basically that whatever's going on there is probably like that adrenaline has, you know, some kind of affinity, some kind of charge that means that when it's in the bloodstream, it actually, these two things, the receptor and the adrenaline, are kind of like trying to find each other much more than it's just like, you know, oh, missed. Missed. It's like boom.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is running on energy, and so that's where the chi comes in.
Because I was just thinking about, you know, when you put an acupuncture needle in, or if you're doing a bodywork technique and you press a point. I mean, with Shiatsu technique, we often use what we call a mother hand. So we're monitoring some kind of change in the body, just like when I worked on you, you know, and then we'll quite often press a distal point. I mean, and the thing is, it is an instantaneous thing. You can feel it happening immediately, and so can the receiver. It's not like you say it kind of like winds its way up the nerves or something. It's just an instant bit of information that goes into the system. Yeah.
Things definitely move a lot quicker than the mechanical model of the body would suggest. And that's where the kind of chi links into the channels. So the chi can be understood as an electrical force, a kind of DC type current, and electricity moves incredibly fast.
Yes.
So And so these channels are transmitting some. Basically, it's the chi is like some kind of information. It's got information attached to it, and it's moving around the body, just keeping the body working properly.
Yeah.
And then what happens when you press here then is you're changing that flow of information, or possibly even the information itself.
Yeah.
And it can work, it preferentially works into that organ, presuming that channel is clear, because the chi flows like water. So it would be the same as if you had a blockage within your water pipes. You'd get a plumber around, and the plumber would work out by looking at how your water pipes were set up, where the blockage was and where he'd need to fix it. So it's I just said the body's not mechanical. It's not mechanical in the sense of chi flow, in the sense of the chi, yeah? It's running on energy, yeah, running on this information, electricity. But certainly the way the chi moves around the body is actually very mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So it's not moving around like it's the difference between you're running a Ford, an old Ford, and a Tesla, in a way. Yes. Right. It's kind of one's mechanical and one's running on electricity.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. So this is a slide I thought I spoke earlier about the 6. So you've got these 6 planes within your body.
Yeah.
So the 6 planes, you can see them pretty much in any cross section of the thorax. So I had this discussion the other day with the vets, and I went to say, look, everything important that goes on in your body actually occurs between here and your perineum, your privates.
Yeah.
It seems a bit strange, because you think, oh, hang on, what about the brain? What's that doing then?
Yeah.
Well, the brain's actually just like a government, a good government. So a good government takes 20% of the tax, 20% for tax, and that's it. And that's what your brain takes, interestingly, 20% tax. Yeah, it takes. For that, your brain gives nothing back apart from governance. So you don't get anything useful out of your brain, but you do get governance, and you do get the ability to find food, for instance. But the brain's not good at extracting anything out of that food. The gut has to do that. It can't pump anything around the body. The blood, the heart has to do that. It can't detoxify that. It can't do anything.
No, that's right.
So everything important actually occurs between here and here, and this is why the Chinese, in their Chinese model, they have very little role for the brain. I
was going to say, because it doesn't really, you don't get a brain meridian, do you? I mean, it's a bit of a footnote, isn't it, to the kidney, really, and the governing vessel and conception vessel. But you're right, it's not like a major organ.
Well, the governing vessel, I mean, I described it as government. The governing vessel is, and the translation of the governor is very good translation, because I always check the characters when they use things like Renmai, for instance. There's no way that's conception in the translation, but governor is a very good translation. It's drawn as an uncle keeping an eye on your business while you're away.
Really?
Yeah, it's quite good. Yeah, and so governor's good, and governor channel mirrors the spinal cord and brain. And as I describe in my book, the brain and spinal cord and midbrain are really all one system. They've just been divided by us artificially, and it mirrors it completely. So that is the channel of the brain.
Right. Okay, but it's not one of the organ channels, though, is it? Like the heart and that. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. It doesn't have anywhere near the same relevance to the functions of the pathology, especially within the body. So these 6 main channels, they exist between here and here, and there's 6 planes in the body. So 6, and these 6 planes can be seen if you look through a CT scan but you have to start looking for the spaces again between things. So what I've done here is I've taken a CT scan of the body through the liver, and if you look at this, on the left hand side is how Western medicine traditionally looks at this. It's always about things. So it's like, there's the pancreas, there's the spleen, there's the aorta. And interestingly, radiologists, the people who look at these scans, although they're always talking about things, one of the ways in their mind they used to work out where the things are is the junction between things, the spaces between things.
Yeah.
And especially pathology, when it's pathology, they're always looking in the spaces between things. So these spaces between things are the channels.
Right.
Yeah. So what I've done on the right is illustrate those spaces between things. So this is a different way of looking at exactly the same picture.
Right.
So in the book that these two, yeah, you've nicely divided them up. So exactly the same way of looking at it, but it's completely accurate, but also completely different.
Right. Yes. We were talking about this when we did the rehearsal as well. I was just saying how funny it is about how, because when I was like researching the online course, I found all these very early research papers about trying to find the meridians or the channels. So they would stick dye in them and all kinds of things, and the dye would of course go along, the channel, and they would go, oh my God, we found it. And then they'd look, they couldn't find anything. They measured it, and because actually what is so zen in a way, isn't it? They actually were trying to find nothing. I mean, it was nothing is the thing that it is,
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. And this is why it's so important to use the correct terminology. So channels rather than meridians, because I've had conversations like this with doctors where they say show me the channels then, and I say, well, here we are, loads of them. Where do you want to see? Channels everywhere. And then they go, well, that's not a channel, that's just a space. And it's like, no, it's a channel. It's like things flow in these spaces. That makes it a channel. So, and from our point of view, it's chi that's flowing, but you can also show water flows, a bit like, the dye experiments.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And,
can you just tell us a little bit about which colors, I'm really fascinated about.
Oh, yeah. So you can't really see the fine green. I've got a blue kind of haze over mine. Have you got a blue haze over?
I can see it pretty clearly, actually. I can see it pretty
clearly, I've got some kind of weird blue haze. So the green is Shui Yin channel. So there's only 6 channels, and this ends up massively simplifying the body.
Okay.
This Chinese model of the body massively, including also an acupuncture model. So there's 6 channels. Shui Yin is liver and pericardium, and that's drawn in green. So that's it's also the peritoneal cavity.
Yes.
And also the pleural and pericardial cavities, but it makes the liver, and it makes most of the diaphragm as well.
Right.
And then you've got so we'll go inwards. Then you've got the red, which is kidney and heart. So that's Shao Yin. Okay. So the heart, the aorta, which you can see in the picture on the left, is really part of the heart.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So that's and the kidney. So that's all. They're really all. The heart and the kidney are really, just yin and yang of this one layer. So what the heart pump the blood, but the kidney.
That's one thing that I had to really get my head around, because I was so used to Chinese textbooks going like lung, large intestine, stomach, spleen, and all that, and dividing them up like that. It took me a while to get my head in the right place, because it's basically the 6 divisions, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's like lung and spleen, heart protector, liver, heart and kidney. It's the 6 divisions that you're talking about, and you've divided your book up like that, haven't you?
Yes. This is why. You see, this is why when they have to capitalize things like lung in traditionally.
That's another thing that I noticed. Yeah.
So I've got rid of that completely.
You just don't believe it, do you? It's just the lung.
No. It's not that I don't believe it. It's just it's not necessary if you start using the correct terminology and also understand what you're actually describing. So I think
what I mean by don't believe in it is you don't believe that there should be a special category, a mystery lung with a big L. Yeah. It's got all this mystery stuff, and then there's the Western medicine lung with the little L, which is just a real lung that everyone can see.
It's almost like a legal lung, isn't it? It's like when you go,
yeah. It's like a proper lung, and then there's like a kind of like a, oh really, a lung, you know?
Yeah. Oh, it's not the lung. It's a special lung. It's able to like fly to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was a brave but very, very important step, actually, because then what you're doing is you're forcing everyone really to just think that the energetic lung, the one that we normally put a big L in front of, that energetic lung is the reality. I mean, the reality, the energy body is the reality. It's not some kind of weird hippie madness. It's just, that's what's really happening, you know?
Well, the energy lung, if you like, is basically, see, what I say is that the capital L lung, energy lung, is just the top half of this entire channel layer.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this layer is the lungs formed from endoderm. It also makes your thyroid gland.
Right.
Yeah, but it also makes like lining of the nose and mouth and stuff as well. Yeah, right. Which accounts for various things. But the thyroid gland, all those weird lung the things the lung does, I don't know, the lung, you know, spirit is held in the lung, blah blah blah. I do know, but I can't bring them to my head at the moment.
The lung governs the throat is one of them, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, I mean,
gateway to the throat.
So I mean, basically, the lung in a nutshell is, you know, it holds your it holds your spirit, animalistic, and it also enables you. It also does communication with your kidneys and all kinds of stuff. But
that's right. Yes. Yeah.
The thyroid gland. See, this is the thing I don't think anymore in terms of the Chinese description. For me, the lung, the Chinese capital L lung, is the lung plus the thyroid gland, which is basically both derived from what is drawn in yellow in this picture.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So that yellow is also the spleen and pancreas.
And it's all part of the same system. The lung, the spleen is all part of the same embryological system then?
It's all part of one layer. The top layer is kind of yang, bottom layer is yin. They're both involved in effectively the same function, you know, in terms of the Tai Yin. So this is Tai Yin. What that function is absorbing goodness from the outside environment. Now, goodness is tends to be damp in nature, you know, gooey dampness, and so that's the pathology that they also struggle with a little bit, is dampness. So the idea, so the physical lung with a small L is basically still there.
Yes.
But the greater ideas about what the lung does is because this is really that lung is really just this half of this layer.
Yes, I see. Yes.
Here, just this half. So that also involves the lining of the throat.
Right.
The sinus glands also the sinuses also have the same lining, and most importantly, the thyroid. So
it really does explain a lot of the Chinese medicine sort of connections then, and the associations, the wider associations with the lung function. It really does, and that's one of the things I found when I was reading your book, that really just it kind of made so much sense. A lot of that kind of thing, and especially isn't it the spleen? The serotonin is. So
I talk about that in the first book a lot, but so I don't mention it so much. But what the spleen does is, so the spleen is, you know, I call it an odd organ. It's pretty accurate, really. So it's very interesting because the spleen is part of the Tai Yin system. Yeah. Clearly, it's called lung and spleen. Now, as I've already explained, the Tai Yin, the spleen is just the ultimate manifestation of this in the lower part. Yeah, that's how I see it. In the same way that the lung is the ultimate manifestation in this upper part. Yeah. Yes. Same with the heart. The entire Shaoyin can pump blood. Arteries can pump blood. Yeah. Yes. The heart is just a very thick, convoluted artery, but the heart is the ultimate manifestation of this level. So it's the same with the spleen. And the interesting thing about the spleen is, if you go back to our most primitive ancestors, invertebrates ancestors, called the jawless lamprey, which sounds like something you'd find in the Houses of Parliament at the moment, it actually turns out to be in our prehistoric ancestry. The spleen is incredibly found on the innermost layer of the gut.
All right. Okay.
So it's tie-in. That's the tie-in level in this 6-level system.
Right.
The layers endoderm. It's tie-in. What it's done is it's actually, you can kind of almost see it here. This is the pancreas. I haven't got a pointer actually.
No, we haven't got a pointer. But what color is it?
So have you seen yellow?
Yeah.
Yellow tie-in.
Yes.
And as you'll see, that it's most of them are surrounded in brown. Now brown is yang ming.
Okay.
Yeah? But there's part of it which is surrounded in green. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's actually like it looks like a little tail coming out.
The light green color, you mean?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
yellow. It's yellow, like a tail with a kind of like a and that's so the long bit coming out is the pancreas, and right at the end, opposite the liver in green, the other side of green, that is the spleen, and it's actually grown out of the gut. Like this.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of, it looks like that, yeah.
Right.
And so what the spleen is doing is it's basically governing this whole digestive process.
Yeah.
It's the master controller of digestion, and the pancreas is, it's kind of it's partner in crime in this, or it's partner in this. And so the spleen, one of the ways in which, or the principal way in which the spleen does this, is through the hormone serotonin and regulating the sort of hormone serotonin.
Right.
Yeah, and the spleen does this by regulating platelets.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And I just thought that was interesting, because that sort of like points the way also to having a physiological explanation for certain emotional states that are related to the organs. You know what I mean? Which we kind of just take for read. You just think, okay, it's 5-element associations, blah, 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 and earthing, and the digestion is to do with nurturing and feeling grounded and all that kind of thing, and feeling kind of like satisfied in a particular sort of happy way. But to actually have a direct sort of physiological correlation with that, I just thought that was really exciting as well. That was really good. Yeah,
and to go back to like the lung, for instance, the lung and the thyroid, and the thyroid is basically like a bonsai lung. So the lung itself looks like a tree, and the thyroid's like a mini tree.
Right. Same kind of structure. The Chinese love that as well, don't they?
Completely the same structure, grows out in the same way from the same place, has the same everything, and is in the same fascial plane. And so that's why, and to get to the thyroid, you go in from there with surgery.
Yeah.
So,
you know what? I ever since I read that, whenever I've been working the lung channel, I've just had this image in my mind of it connecting up through here into the thyroid. It makes so much sense with the throat, the connection with the throat. Yeah.
And so people with low thyroxine are terribly dull and unmotivated and uninspired.
Yes.
People with low thyroxine, they're really uninspired is a really good word for them. Of course, because the thyroid gland is the messenger system of the lung.
Right.
Or upper end of the thing. So the lung, if the lung has some kind of distress, or is, I suppose in a way the lung doesn't suffer so much. Well, it does suffer from distress. Then it can send messages through to the rest of the body through the thyroid gland.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why the Chinese endocrine system is all these crazy relations that they talk about between the organs. So heart and kidney not communicating.
Oh, right. Yes.
But the not communicating bit is the hormones between them, the heart and kidney's loads, aren't talking to each other properly. They might be things like angiotensin, and that's when you get hypertension and stuff like that.
Yes. Kidney heart connection is a big one, isn't it, in Chinese medicine?
Yeah.
A big one. Yeah. And of course they're the same system, aren't they? The same in the 6 divisions, they're the same system.
Shaoyin, yeah. And every single hypertensive works on something within the Shaoyin level, kidney or heart.
What, the drugs you mean?
Yeah, every single one. They either work on kidney, heart, or the blood vessels themselves.
Right. All right. Yeah.
So, and this is because hypertension is basically fundamentally a disease of the Shaoyin.
Right. Okay. There we go. If only they knew that.
Yeah. I definitely do, but yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. I've got a question from Zora. She said it's a technical question about cell membranes, and she just wants to know what do you know what in your opinion, what's the connection of key movement in the channels with electrophysiology? In other words, the electrical phenomenon on the cell membranes themselves. I don't know if you've got any input on that.
So I actually did a little video the other day about the cell, and I actually kind of divide the cell off from the rest of the body in a way. And I say, look, it's almost there's certainly chi going on within the cell, must be, yeah. But you almost don't need to know about it. And the analogy I use is, if you wanted to understand how human society works, you wouldn't start taking apart individual people to find out how it works. You'd basically look at the relationships between people.
Right. Okay.
So that's what chi is. It's we're a society of 100 trillion cells, and basically those cells are all communicating with each other, and you just have to you could almost treat them all like people, and so you don't need to take apart the person. It's kind of interesting what's inside a person, but you don't to understand why our society's working or not working, you don't need to understand.
Right, okay.
So the exact effect of chi on the cells, well, the way I see chi is it's some kind of information transferred in the form of electricity generally. I mean, for whatever reason in this universe, electromagnetic radiation seems to be the way in which, we're kind of in an electric universe. So it's transmitted using electricity, and it's got information. So it in some way, and at that point we start to get into the mystery of life itself, because it's like a life force, and it's telling the cells what to do, but also telling them, that they're kind of fine, they're safe, that they, and this is where Qigong practices like the inner smile, where you kind of look down to your spleen and say, I feel good, and your spleen kind of goes, thank you.
Yeah.
So those kind of inner smile type things make physiological sense.
Right. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I wonder if we should, I'll be interested. I thought perhaps we could just launch a poll. I'd just be interested to know, let's have a look. I just want to know should we find out how many people who are with us have actually read your book, Sparking the Machine? Let's just find out. Let's just find out. That was Dan's first book. Let's just get an idea. How many fans you've got out there already?
Oh, wow. Pretty close.
A lot of people. A lot.
Yeah, good.
Anyone else want to vote? But it's pretty much 50-50.
It is 50-50.
Wow,
well, 50%, it's...
that's it. It's exactly 50-50 so far. That's incredible. Carlos says he's currently reading it. Vincenzo says, not yet. I'm a bit intimidated. I'm still a Shiatsu student.
Oh,
Karen says she's read it twice, front to back, and refers to it all the time.
You've read it for Carlos then, haven't you, basically?
Yeah. It blew my mind to somebody. That's amazing. That's incredible. That's exactly 50-50. We couldn't have made that up, could we?
It's not a scary book.
It isn't a scary book at all. I think it's very approachable indeed. Yeah, I would encourage you to.
One of the things I got on Amazon actually was somebody saying that it was they still gave it 4 stars, but it was basically like, I hated the tone of the book.
Really?
And I was like, well, that's just the tone of the book, basically. It's you've got to set a tone, haven't you? So I was like, never miss an opportunity. So I was like, you'll much more enjoy the Uncharted Body. It's much more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a different tone. I would say that the Uncharted Body is much more like a textbook. It is written in a much more. It's still your natural exuberance can't be contained though. It still does come out. You can't totally make it boring. I'm afraid there's nothing you can do. It just jumps out at you. But this is definitely much more. It's a real readable. Anyone could read this. I mean, you don't have to even be into Chinese medicine. I don't think that's like really.
Yeah, no, that was that annoyed me with the publishers, that book, because basically I said to them it's a popular science book. They tried to turn it into a textbook.
Really? Oh, right. Yeah.
All of the kind of fun in that book is in the writing, whereas all of the fun in the uncharted bodies in the illustrations.
Yeah, the illustrations are fantastic. Yeah, they are really good. Yeah, I love that. Everyone I show it to, they go, "Oh, I love the cover." They can't stop touching the cover. Oh, it's my daughter. She's 18. She went, "Oh, it's so cool. I love the cover." You can.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's a good one. And it's an interesting diagram you've got there. I mean, because basically you've done sort of like a schematic, haven't you, of essentially what we're looking at now, but through the whole body.
The 6 levels, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that came to me in an altered state of consciousness that years ago, just when we were searching for a cover for the first book.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I should have put this up, but there's a very famous picture from about the 14th century or something it's called the Neijing as well, I think, and it's basically the body drawn literally as a landscape with waterfalls.
Oh yeah, it's like a metaphor thing.
Yeah, there's that, and there's also what came to me was that those crazy pictures of they have in the ancient things, where often the body is a bit like my body. It's just a globe almost, or an oval, and then there's all these like lungs that look like leaves. Like that, and it came to me that what they were illustrating was the relations between things. They weren't bothered about it. I always looked at these and went, "Oh man, that's a terrible picture of the lung." Seriously, what were you on? But then I realized they're not bothered about what the actual lung, the fine detailed lung. They're just saying, "Look, it kind of looks like this," and it does. Yeah, it kind of looks like almost like leaves, but more importantly, it connects this way,
right?
And that's what they were illustrating. So and from that came this illustration. So I drew it.
Yeah, cool.
I've got the original somewhere, and it might be up here. And I was just very, very like.
Did you draw that yourself then?
Yeah, that picture I drew myself. Yeah.
Did you? Oh, wow.
I drew myself. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Amazing. Yeah, you'll see it on the cover there. Yeah.
And so if you look at that, there's 6 layers.
Yes, I know. As I was reading the book, it slowly made more sense to me, which I guess is kind of the idea.
Yeah.
It kind of made more sense to me as I read through it. And when I send out the emails, in fact, I can do it now. I can share a link. I can share a link straight into Dan's website if you're interested in the book. Yeah, I can send. So I'll share that. So you can just look that up later, and you can see the book. In fact, there's a picture of it there. Look, when the link comes up, there's top of the picture. Yeah.
So originally, that picture was supposed to be on the cover of my first book.
Oh, was it? All right.
Publishers refused, and so I've almost wrote this book around that picture.
Yes, well, I think you have. I think you've successfully done that, because as I slowly read through it, it made more sense.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. The plan worked.
Yeah, that's the idea. The idea is that by the end of that, so that you understand all of those like relations that are going on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, cool. So the funny thing. So I talked earlier about the 6 levels.
Yeah.
And at first, these seem daunting and scary, because you've got to learn 6 more words for starters, and they're Chinese words like Shui Yin and Shao Yin. But the important thing to understand is once you've done this, then everything gets much more simple. Everything, the whole of medicine gets much more simple. Like Western medicine too.
Wow.
Like all of it starts making sense. It combines so in Western medicine, anatomy, physiology, embryology, and even pathology, they're all slightly separate. I mean, embryology and anatomy are linked, because they accept that embryology forms anatomy. But within this model, so that effectively the Chinese model, they all coalesce into a coherent whole, where basically the embryology and the anatomy and the physiology all make sense together.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's simple.
And and I guess it must be amazing for you, because the Chinese medicine study led you there, having gone through the whole Western medicine thing and had all that information. And then suddenly, it must have been an amazing experience to suddenly see it all kind of in a way fitting into place through the Chinese medicine.
Yeah, I mean, it was so gradual and slow that I don't know, apart from that one moment where I kind of drew the crazy picture, which I put somewhere. But
looking back on it, it must be amazing the way it ties everything together. Things that you wouldn't necessarily link together.
Yeah, I mean,
Chinese medicine, and without the embryology and the Chinese medicine link, I suppose.
Yeah, that was the missing link. That's why Western medicine didn't get Chinese medicine, because they didn't recognize the incomparable importance of embryology. Ask any doctor about embryology, and you can prove that statement by just next doctor you see, just say, oh, acupuncture is all about embryology, and see what their response is. Would just be like, what? And you'll be slightly terrified because they don't know any.
They don't teach it in med school then?
Well, they do, but it's taught so terribly, and it's taught so boringly, and also, like I said, they're separate. They've become separate. Embryology and physiology, divorced very quickly in Western.
Right, I see. Yes. Yeah.
Embryology explains anatomy, but equally only in a very kind of mechanical type way. Oh, this forms this kind of thing, rather than what this model does is an embryology and anatomy. Then you understand it as an attempt to overcome an environmental problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is, so for instance, the reason why the kidneys are plugged into the bladder. Yeah. So the kidneys are Chao Yin, and the bladder is Tai Yang. Yes. Yeah. So those two are linked. Shao Yin, Tai Yang are linked in the sixth. Yeah. See, this is.
Yeah, sure.
I was explaining this the other day to physios, and I was like looking at them, trying to struggle. I was going, look, I know it's challenging. It gets easier once you get these terms. You've just got to learn the terms. It's annoying. Sure. I can apologize in the book about it. It's annoying, but you got to do it. So Shao Yin and Tai Yang are linked internally, externally. Now, what is that about? Well, basically, when the heart in animals becomes more powerful, able to pump blood more further away from your gut, there is an equally big problem that it creates, which is the toxins that are produced in these cells that are able to receive blood are also now further away from being able to be excreted to the outside.
Right, sure, yeah.
This is why these two, what Tai Yang does is allow you, hence why it's bladder, allow you to excrete poisons, Right. Shao Yin does is allow you to put blood to grow the organism, So basically, as powerful as the heart becomes, the bladder has to become equally as powerful so it can clean. Right. So this is why those two are linked.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah,
that's it. And then also also you can look at the kidney itself and go, well, actually, the Tai Yang part of the kidney, of the bladder actually grows into the kidney, and not a large part, but a fair amount of what we call the physical kidney. Yes. Medicine is actually bladder, Tai Yang.
Oh, right. It's connected through the actual embryological structure of it, you mean?
Yeah, because the plumbing, so you've got kidney, and the plumbing's like that. Yeah. And the plumbing obviously goes to the bladder, so it takes the waste out. Yes. And it has to grow into the kidney.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Cool.
Tai Yang, and the kidney, the cleaning of the blood bit is the Chao Yin. Yeah. So all of this just massively, it all starts to make sense in terms of oh, right, okay, that makes perfect sense. And then you can, like I said, every hypertensive works on the Shao Yin. Yeah. I have to say, on a personal level, that since I've read your books, and as part of the research I've been doing for the online course, which I'm going to talk about in a minute because we've only got 6 minutes left, it's really given me a lot more confidence working. And we were doing a clinic recently, and there was a woman who thought she'd had a stroke, but she didn't have a stroke.
and we were doing a clinic, and it was just wind in the channels, wind in the liver and the pericardium channel. And it was just absolutely extraordinary, because I could see it, and it was almost like I could hear your voice in my head, you know. And I just looked at it. I said, "There's wind in that channel," you know. And sure enough, 20 minutes later, we just worked at it, and it just totally changed everything. I just thought, this stuff is totally real, and it's totally works. You know what I mean? I mean, I know I've been practicing for like too many years to even mention, like over 30 years. But it's amazing just what a revelation it is to absolutely get that confirmation that what you're feeling, and it's all, you know, energy and blah blah, is really absolutely explainable. It really helps the confidence. Yeah. And I'm sure that helps clinical practice as well.
That's it. I mean, basically in that size book, you're getting an entire medical, like a very comprehensive like medical
yeah, I love that as well, because you were always tying it up with Western medicine and everything, you know. It's great. Yeah. Well, you'll see in our online course, in one of the modules, this is featured as product placement. You'll see us actually on this very mat behind us with the book, you know, looking at it in one of the videos. So I guess I'm going to just say, you just want to hang on for 5 minutes. I'm just going to describe the course. You'll see how your work fits into the whole course. And then I just want to obviously say a big thank you to you at the end. But I'll just quickly go through the I just want to talk to you about, well, first of all, I'm going to find out how many people have already been on one of our courses. How many of you that are already out there watching this webinar, how many of you have already signed up for one of our online courses? So, wow, quite a few already. Yep, pretty much the same as your book, about half and half.
I wonder which half. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the scientific basic course, really excited about it. It goes back to the beginning of the whole idea about new energy work, which we started way back in 2010 when I presented with James Oshman. And I had this idea of like combining the science of Western medicine and all the cool new research that's going on, and kind of combining that with the traditional knowledge. So that's why your work, Dan, it just fits, and totally fits with the project. We've been doing that since 2010. The course, I'll just quickly go through the aims of the course and the activities and how it works. We've got 3 aims. We want to kind of discover how we can explain Shiatsu through the latest discoveries. We want to explore some advanced techniques. And what we've done is we've actually developed some new advanced techniques that are based on the science. So it's kind of actually influenced the way that we use our body and all kinds of things. So it's actually the most practically advanced course we've done so far. And also, we think it's really important to be able to talk to people and explain what we're doing in everyday language. There's theory video presentations where we go through the research. We've got practical tutorial videos. We've got energy exercises that you can listen to and work on your own energy. There's forums where you can chat and ask questions as we go along, handouts, and there's a quiz at the end of each module. There's a discussion area actually attached to every resource in the thing, and we've got 7 modules, and we cover everything from fields and interaction, pressure and connection, channels and points, and that's where we're going to reference Dan's work. We've got a module on tensegrity. We've got another one on metaphor and meaning, which goes more into the neurophysiology. And then we've got one on quantum coherence. So we've covered a lot of the range of different scientific inputs on the course. That's it. Yep, so basically it's dripped. If you've been on one before, half of you have been on the course before, you'll understand that, remember that it's dripped once a week. You've got the forum support. You have lifetime access to the course, and there's 45 hours of CPD credits. And if you've been on one of these webinars, launch webinars before, you know that we like to give you a discount to start the whole thing off, because we like loads of people to start at the beginning. And we've done the same thing again. We're going to give 25 places at 25% discount. And I'm going to share the link with you now, and I'm going to send it to you in an email if you'd like to sign up. So here's the link. Okay, so you can just click on that if you want to sign up and be one of those first 25 people to join us. We're really looking forward to it. It's going to be really, really cool. And that's it, really. That's it. Yep, we've time's up in 45 seconds. We like to be on time. And Dan, I just want to say it's been so much fun. I've really, really enjoyed, this webinar. It's been really good. Yeah. And thank you so much for your valuable work. It really is so great. I'll send out the link to your book with the follow-up emails. And yeah, I hope to meet you again soon, maybe down near where you live, or maybe, who knows, Amsterdam next year. We'll try and get you in.
Yeah, okay, yeah, good. Yeah, I'd love to, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone as well for being on the webinar. It's been a record webinar, 622 signups. So it's been absolutely awesome. And yeah, see you again soon. Thank you very much.